A contentious special session comes to an end, but the bitter divide among lawmakers is not over, and it may be having an effect outside the Capitol.
I think a lot of people feel just that you're always a step away from conflict, and I think that's affecting people.
How a new poll highlights growing worries fueled by partisan politics as more Texans are questioning the path we're on. You no longer need a license to carry a handgun in Texas. Why some gun dealers are still pushing buyers to go through the training process. COVID-19 cases are rising among kids too young to go to school. Our investigation looks closer at how childcare centers are handling an increase in cases.
Produced from the Capitol in Austin and airing statewide, this is the award-winning State of Texas.
Hello and thank you for joining us. I'm Josh Hinkle. The second special session of the Texas legislature is finished. Thursday night, lawmakers quickly pushed through a few more bills on Governor Greg Abbott's priority list. One of the final measures to pass was a bill to continue funding for legislative staffers. The bill also included a one-time payment to retired teachers and millions to help foster care providers. The Senate adjourned on an upbeat note.
Have you ever done this before, Senator Zaffirini?
A girl could get used to it, Mr. President.
Smiles and laughter spread through the chamber as Republican Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick called on veteran Democratic Senator Judith Zaffirini to make the motion to adjourn. The happy tone Thursday night briefly masked the deep divides that remain at the Capitol. There's still partisan bitterness over Texas House Democrats who stalled the session by breaking quorum and heading to Washington to block an election bill. That bill ended up passing, adding new restrictions on voting in Texas. There's also fierce division over the state's new heartbeat law. The anti-abortion law is the most restrictive in the country, banning abortions as early as 6 weeks of pregnancy. It's sparking conflict in the courts and among citizens on opposing sides of the debate. This all comes as Texas faces an ongoing surge of COVID-19. Cases are straining hospitals and bringing out confrontation over how to slow the spread of the virus and even how to treat patients. The tensions are playing a role in how Texans feel about their future. New polling from the Texas Politics Project asked voters whether they thought the state was headed in the right direction. Just over a third said yes. Joining us now for Insight is Jim Henson, the Executive Director of the Texas Politics Project. Welcome.
Thanks for having me back, Josh.
So Jim, the state is on the wrong track according to the polls. That's a big change even from what we saw at the start of the summer. Is there any precedence for what the wrong track number is being so high?
Well, in a lot of ways, not really. I mean, the closest we saw to this was about a 48% wrong track number going back to the height of the economic downturn after 2008. That was around 2010, 2011, I think. But this is really an eye-opener for us. 52% saying Texas is on the wrong track is the highest reading we've gotten since we've been doing this overall polling projects going back to 2009.
What's fueling the dissatisfaction?
Well, where do I start? You know, it's hard. You know, you'd have to look at the pandemic and the experience of the pandemic. It's driving a lot of this, particularly, I think, the Delta variant and the sense of disappointment. But I think there's a big diffuse set of things that we can look at. The partisan political environment and how tough that is. The sense that it's been a tough year in Texas. The power outages, the infrastructure failures. We could go on.
So much of that for many Texans relates back to Governor Abbott. What are the polling telling you about his job performance?
Well, not surprisingly, given that wrong track number, Governor Abbott also was at a particularly low point. At 41% approve, 50% disapprove. That's about as low as the governor's been in terms of his approval numbers. That's a big deficit, and we saw his numbers go down in every category.
You also polled Texans about mask mandates. Governor Abbott has fought efforts by school districts to require masks.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that was really interesting here is the cross currents we saw in people's attitudes towards masks. So, you know, overall, a large number of Texans supported public schools requiring students and staff to wear masks, 56%. If we ask people with very few kind of political cues, do you think that schools should be able to or have students and staff wear masks? You get a relatively high number, maybe surprisingly high. When you say, do you support Governor Abbott's policy prohibiting mask mandates by schools and local authorities, you activate partisanship and Governor Abbott and all these other things in the equation, and support goes down.
Yeah, when you asked that question, whether voters support the governor's ban on government mask mandates, which includes schools, 41% supported the ban, 45% against. So the results seem slightly mixed on the question of mask mandates, really.
Right, and what happens is, I think if you scratch below the surface, there's, as you would expect, there's a lot of what we call partisan structure. Democrats very much, more in favor of masks. Republicans resistant. The difference here is the setting of schools and kids, where you get, I think around 15% of Republicans move to support masks in schools. Children will do that as well. When you introduce schools and the safety of children, it moves some people around.
Anything else stick out with the poll to you?
Well, I think I would go back to COVID-19. I mean, that it's so central to all of this, but and this again is a public health point. Texans who have not received a COVID-19 vaccination and say that they don't plan on doing so, continue to be less likely to report behaviors that curb the spread of the virus than those who are vaccinated or intend to. So 70% of those who have not been vaccinated and don't plan on getting the shot report not wearing a mask when they're indoors in public places. It's something that public opinion is telling us about the continuing kind of problem of halting the spread of the virus.
All right, Jim Henson of the Texas Politics Project, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me. Good to see you, Josh.
You too.
COVID cases on the rise in Texas childcare centers.
And our kids, throughout the pandemic, really haven't been infected. That's changed all of a sudden.
What centers around the state are doing to stop the spread and protect children. Healthcare workers at risk in Texas, and it goes beyond the virus. The efforts to protect doctors and nurses from violent attacks and how some of those plans fell short. And later, a new law lets more people carry handguns without getting training or a license. Why some Texans see the law as a broken promise.